My name is Trevor Zinn, and I am an avid car enthusiast. Now that sounds like something you'd hear at a self-help meeting, especially since we're supposed to be saving the Amazon and the polar bears, but I digress. For most of us car enthusiasts, our obsession grew out of film. And it's not just your run-of-the-mill teenagers rummaging under the hoods of their Honda Civics after watching each of the Fast and Furious movies 5,000 times. A Swedish man by the name of Christian von Koenigsegg was inspired to create his own supercar company after watching the Pinchlift Grand Prix at a very young age. It's a stop-motion film where a bicycle repairman builds his own car to compete in a Grand Prix-style race. Cars have played a role in film since the early 1910s, with the appearance of a few automobiles in the 1914 short film Mabel's Blunder. According to imcdb.org, there have been almost 900,000 vehicles used in films as either background vehicles, action vehicles, and vehicles used by the main character, which is what I'll be discussing today.
That's her, man. That's you.
Hollywood loves to use specific cars for the main characters of a film. Particularly here in America, we generally see cars as a status symbol and make particular associations with certain brands and models. Film directors will use cars to contribute to a character's persona or social status, or for a quick joke.
61 in a 25 zone.
I was drag racing.
In a Prius.
I don't win a lot.
Generally, you can quickly tell if a car will play an important role in a film based on a few techniques a director will use. The first I call the big reveal, which is essentially how the car is presented to the viewer. Does the character just drive up in it, or is it slowly unveiled with someone pulling off the covers or a garage door slowly opening?
You ready for this, Grumpy?
Another is how much screen time will be dedicated to showing off the car. Is it simply in the background somewhere, or do we see action happening inside the vehicle, or is there time taken to simply show the vehicle driving around? You can also see varying levels of sophistication of the camera work done for a car. Sometimes there will be a single stationary camera capturing one angle of the vehicle for one scene. Other times, the filmmakers will pull out all the stops with rigs such as a Russian arm, which is the most popular in capturing realistic car chases. For this discussion, I will be focusing on how cars are used in an action film and a thriller. Representing action films will be James Bond. Choosing just one Bond film is very difficult, considering Bond's Aston Martin is one of the most iconic vehicles in film history. The Aston Martin has been with Bond even before the films, with the classic now, DB3, as the spy's choice of wheels in Ian Fleming's novel Goldfinger. Since the first Bond film, Dr. No, in 1962, and Aston Martin has been the hero car in almost half of the 25 total films. To date, arguably the most extreme and capable Aston Martin to star in a Bond film was the DB10 out of the most recent release, Spectre. Now, being the dweeb I am, I could go on for forever about the technical specifications for the DB10 and how this car wasn't fabricated by a studio, but was designed and hand-built by Aston Martin's Q division. It was built from the ground up by the manufacturer itself, which meant the 10 examples built in total for the production were ludicrously expensive, like Powerball winning expensive, like something in the region of $5.7 million each expensive. Numbers aside, the DB10 was built specifically for the film Spectre. It was built specifically for Daniel Craig's Bond, a Bond who isn't so much about cheesy one-liners but more a tortured soul. The designer Merrick Reichman has said in an interview, Daniel's Bond is closer to the original, darker Bond. He's very much an athlete, and I wanted the car to have a similar appearance. It's a predator. I wanted this car to look like a hunter. This design ethos is apparent in the shark-inspired front-end design, the simple but sharp lines, and the menacing exhaust note. There was a lot of hype surrounding this vehicle when it made its debut. It was introduced as the first member of the cast during its unveiling. So, how would this future icon make its appearance on the screen? Well, it looks something like this.
Magnificent, isn't she? 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. Fully bulletproof, a few little tricks up her sleeve. It's a shame, really. She was meant for you, but she's been reassigned to 009. But you can have this.
Does it do anything?
It tells the time.
The slow opening doors, the slow panning shots over the body, The filtered, even lighting, eliminating hard light spots and creating areas of light and dark contrast in the body, it's all there. If you ever wanted to set aside a few seconds in the film to geek out over a car, this is the way to do it. Later in the film, we get an epic car chase. Obviously, it's James Bond. We have to have a car chase. The vehicular battle between Bond and his rather quiet rival, Mr. Hanks, played by Dave Bautista, goes down in the dark streets of Rome. Spectre's director, Sam Mendes, makes use of a number of rigs to capture the combination of fixed panning shots, body-mounted shots, and rolling shots, all meant to immerse the viewer in the action and make them feel as if they're tearing around the Vatican with the two supercars. The highlight of modern car chases are the rolling shots. Camera rigs such as the Russian arm, which was primarily used in the chase scene, are able to not only follow the action, but put the camera in the heart of the action. The production of the chase scene also required the use of a helicopter and a speedboat to capture the cars running along the Tiber River. When in-car shots were needed to capture Craig and Bautista's facial expressions and dialogue, a pod car was used. A pod car is a device that allows the vehicle to be driven in real time, with the actors in the vehicle delivering their performance. The vehicle, however, is in no way in control of the actor and is instead being driven by an operator in a structure on the roof. The result is a beautifully choreographed chase scene between the rivals. Most chase scenes contain a lot of frantic and quick cuts to heighten action and often takes place in a limited area at a restricted location. Not here. The team behind Spectre was able to pretty much completely shut down the streets of Rome, which afforded longer takes in the scene and a sense of continuity and flow that we rarely see in other action movies. For example, take a look at this short portion of the chase where we follow the action smoothly through a section of the city. We see the cars racing towards St. Peter's Square, cutting to different views with the Vatican still visible. The cars enter a drift with a view from a Russian arm behind them, cut to a different view of that same drift, cut back to the Russian arm behind them as the cars drift in a different direction, cut to a different view of that same drift from a different arm, cut to Bond, continue with that same view, cut to Hanks, continue with that same view. Altogether, it looks like this. Now, even with the anticipation surrounding the DB10 and the laborious efforts to make it look and perform incredibly, we only see it for about 7 minutes out of a total 2.5-hour runtime. As tragic as that is, it pales in insignificance as to why it didn't stay in the film longer.
Here goes nothing.
Now we'll switch gears to a completely different genre and talk about cars in a thriller. The film I chose was Nightcrawler, directed by Dan Gilroy, which is kind of more of a psychological thriller. The film follows Louis Bloom, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, as he goes from being nearly homeless to being one of the top crime video journalists in Los Angeles. During his journey, he begins to become a part of the crimes he is tasked with capturing instead of simply observing them. It's sort of a modern iteration of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, except for the fact the main character has been kind of crazy all along. In the beginning of the film, Bloom sulks around the city looking for work behind the wheel of this, a Corolla Pinto. I don't even know, and frankly it doesn't matter what it is. It's what it represents that matters. It's a dirty, wheezing, dying, sad little putt-putt around town mobile that's desperately running on its last legs. It's essentially the vehicular embodiment of the main character at the beginning of the film. To Bloom, cars are a status symbol. In one scene, we see him driving around the city with a mopey demeanor as he looks out the window at luxury car dealerships and banks. The fact he's constantly in this car makes him feel disappointed in his financial situation and gives him such a drive to be successful in any capacity. There aren't any special shots taken of the Corolla Pinto thing, and it's rarely shown in its full crappy glory. There are a lot of hood-mounted shots in the film which, much like Inspector, are meant to capture the character's emotions. In Nightcrawler, the characters, especially Bloom, are very dynamic, and we see their personalities rise and fall from our view of them through the windshield. We see Bloom at his lowest, through rising confidence, and then when he knows he has made it. That final stage comes when he finally bids farewell to the Corolla Pinto thing, and brings this into his life. Again, we see a long take of the car from one angle, and even revisit the same shot after we cut to the actors. The Challenger gets a lot more screen time than its predecessor, with shots of it running red lights, pulling up to its destination, and the obligatory car chase. I'm gonna get nerdy for a couple minutes, but bear with me. The Dodge Challenger we see here may be one of the best choices for Gyllenhaal's character, especially at the point in the film when he acquires it. He's stronger and much more determined than he was before. However, his morals have also faded, as he does anything and everything to get what he wants, no matter the consequences.
Rick, I'm very pleased with how you progressed. You're doing a great job. However, you just spilled gasoline on my car, which will lead to pain. I need you to tighten up a bit on this, because if you felt like that again, I will terminate you immediately, I promise you.
He never was the good guy in the film, but by this time it's very apparent that he is a menace. And that is why the Dodge Challenger is so perfect for Bloom. It's a loud, brash, brutal, and intimidating machine, especially in the devilish red it's in. It's a bad guy's car. Going all the way back to Bullet and even Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof, what did the villains drive? Dodge Challengers and Dodge Chargers. The Challenger comes into its own during the final chase scene of the film. This chase scene is very different from the one in Spectre. We see a lot of action from inside the car and the main character's expressions and reactions. Also, there isn't the same level of continuity, going from a back alley to a narrow side street and then suddenly to a 4-lane wide thoroughfare. There are also a lot more pedestrian cars in the scene, which, thanks again to the use of a Russian arm, like this one here, gives us a heightened sense of speed and danger. Also, the cuts are much more frantic, with cameras mounted in a fixed fashion, heightening the intensity of the scene. The end result looks something like this. To end this video, I would just want to say how I hope I've given you a new awareness and appreciation of cars in film, and how they are important and can be more than just machines, but represent us in our own personalities and characteristics. At this point, I'll turn it over to myself where you can ask any questions or comments or just tell me to sit down now.